Admiral Zethkar stood on the bridge of the mighty dreadnought Times Crimson Talon Asterisk, his scaled hands gripping the command rail as he gazed at the blue-green world hanging before them like a jewel in space. Earth, the third planet of an unremarkable star system in what the galaxy considered the Outer Rim territories, home to a species that had barely managed to crawl beyond their own atmosphere. "Scan complete, Admiral," reported Commander Vex Thull from the sensor station. "The planet shows primitive orbital installations, several space stations, crude by our standards. Their largest military vessels appear to be chemical propulsion based with basic energy weapons." Zethkar's lips curled back, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth in what passed for a draconian smile. The humans had been making noise lately, too much noise for creatures who should know their place in the galactic hierarchy. They had been expanding beyond their home system, establishing colonies, making contact with other species. Most troubling of all, they had been interfering with Draconian business ventures in neutral space. "How many ships in their defensive fleet?" Zethkar asked. "Approximately 200 vessels of various sizes, Admiral. Nothing that could pose a threat to even our smallest corvette." The Draconian Empire had ruled a significant portion of the galaxy for over 3 millennia. Their ships were forged from quantum-bonded alloys that could withstand the fury of stars. Their weapons could crack moons in half. Their shields could deflect the combined firepower of entire planetary defense networks. The humans, according to all intelligence reports, were barely more advanced than the primitive species the Empire had subjugated centuries ago. "Signal the fleet," Zethkar commanded. "We advance as planned. The humans will learn what happens when insects buzz too loudly around dragons." Behind the flagship, a massive armada spread across space like a dark tide. 500 Draconian warships, each one a masterpiece of destruction. Battleships that stretched for kilometers, their hulls bristling with plasma cannons and photon torpedoes. Cruisers that could glass entire continents. Frigates and destroyers that moved like deadly schools of metal predators through the void. This was Fleet Dominus, the Empire's most feared battle group. They had conquered 47 star systems and brought entire civilizations to their knees. Today, they would add Earth to that list. The human defense fleet moved to intercept them as they crossed the outer edge of the solar system. Zethkar watched with amusement as the primitive ships arranged themselves in what they probably considered a battle formation. Their largest vessels were barely the size of Draconian escort ships. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. "Put it through. Let's hear what the insects have to say before we crush them." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. The creature looked young by human standards, though it was difficult for Draconians to tell with these mammals. His species was so short-lived that they all seemed like children. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said, his voice steady despite facing overwhelming odds. "You are entering Earth's sovereign space without authorization. Turn your fleet around and leave immediately, or we will be forced to defend ourselves." Laughter erupted across the Draconian bridge. The idea that these primitives would threaten the Empire's most powerful fleet was beyond absurd. Zethkar stepped forward, his massive frame dwarfing the communications console. "I am Admiral Zethkar of Fleet Dominus," he growled, his voice carrying the authority of 3,000 years of conquest. "Your species has overstepped its boundaries. Human, you will surrender unconditionally, and your world will become a vassal of the Draconian Empire. Refuse, and we will turn your planet into molten slag." The human admiral's expression didn't change. There was no fear in his eyes, no recognition of the hopelessness of his situation. If anything, he looked disappointed. "I was hoping it wouldn't come to this," Admiral Chen said quietly. "But if you insist on proceeding, then God help you all." The transmission ended, and Zethkar felt a moment of confusion. The human had spoken as if the Draconians were the ones in danger, as if 500 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy were somehow threatened by a handful of primitive vessels. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the human ships. Their power output is It's impossible. The readings must be wrong. Before Zethkar could respond, space itself seemed to twist and bend around the Earth fleet. The human ships began to change, their hulls reshaping and expanding as hidden systems came online. What had appeared to be crude metal constructs revealed themselves as something far more sophisticated. The largest human vessel, which had seemed no bigger than a Draconian frigate, suddenly unfolded like a mechanical flower. Armor plating retracted to reveal weapons that pulsed with energy signatures that made the Draconians' most powerful guns look like children's toys. The ship doubled in size, then tripled, then grew beyond anything in the Draconian fleet. "What in the name of the ancient flames is that thing?" Commander Vex Thul whispered. Across the human fleet, the same transformation was taking place. Ships that had looked primitive and outgunned revealed their true nature. Stealth systems deactivated, showing that the human fleet was not 200 vessels, but over 2,000. Weapons systems that defied known physics charged with power that made space itself shimmer. Admiral Chen's voice came through on an open channel, reaching every ship in the Draconian fleet. "This is your final warning. Leave now, or face the consequences. We have no desire to hurt you, but we will defend our home." Zethkar's mind reeled as he tried to process what he was seeing. The intelligence reports had been wrong. Catastrophically wrong. The humans weren't primitive insects buzzing around their bedders. They were something else entirely. "Admiral, what are your orders?" Commander Vex Thul asked, his usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. Pride and 3 millennia of conquest wouldn't let Zethkar back down now. The Draconian Empire had never retreated from a battle. Never shown weakness to an inferior species. Even if the humans had hidden capabilities, the sheer number of ships in fleet dominus would carry the day. "All ships, attack formation," Zethkar roared. "Show these mammals what happens when they dare to threaten the Empire." The Draconian fleet surged forward, their massive ships unleashing devastating volleys of plasma fire and quantum torpedoes. The void between the fleets lit up with enough destructive energy to sterilize planets. Any normal civilization would have been obliterated in the opening seconds of the assault. But the human ships didn't break apart under the barrage. They didn't even seem particularly concerned. Their shields absorbed the Draconian weapons' fire like it was nothing more than gentle rain, and then they began to return fire. The first human weapon to discharge was unlike anything the Draconians had ever encountered. It wasn't plasma or particle beams or any known form of energy weapon. It was something that seemed to reach out and simply unmake whatever it touched. A Draconian battleship, one of the most heavily armored vessels in the fleet, was struck by the beam and simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not torn apart, it was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never been built. "Impossible," Zethkar breathed. "Our ships are protected by quantum armor. Nothing can just delete them from existence." But the humans weren't finished. More of their weapons opened fire, and each shot was different from the last. Some created gravity wells that crushed Draconian ships like tin cans. Others fired what appeared to be miniature black holes that consumed entire squadrons. Still others launched projectiles that seemed to ignore the laws of physics entirely, phasing through shields and armor as if they weren't there. Within minutes, a quarter of fleet dominus had been eliminated. Not damaged, not disabled. Completely erased from existence. "Admiral, we need to retreat." Commander Vex Thul shouted over the chaos. "Whatever these humans are, they're not what we thought." But it was too late for retreat. The human fleet had moved with impossible speed, surrounding the Draconians in a perfect sphere of destruction. Every escape route was blocked by ships that seemed to mock the very concept of technological limitation. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the panic on the Draconian bridge. "You were warned, Admiral Zethkar. Your species speaks of honor and strength, but you prey on those weaker than yourselves. You came here expecting to conquer a primitive world, but Earth stopped being primitive long ago. We simply chose to appear that way." On the main screen, Zethkar could see his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by weapons and technologies that shouldn't exist. Ships that had conquered star systems were being swatted aside like insects. The irony wasn't lost on him. "What are you?" he demanded. his voice breaking with the weight of 3,000 years of shattered pride. What species could develop such power? Admiral Chen's image appeared on the screen one final time, and for the first time since the battle began, he smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile, or one of conquest. It was the patient smile of a teacher explaining something obvious to a slow student. We're human, Admiral. We're the species you thought you could bully. We're the civilization that learned long ago that the only way to truly ensure peace is to be prepared for war. Every species in the galaxy has made the same mistake you just made. They see our public face, our civilian technologies, our diplomatic efforts, and they think we're weak. The human admiral leaned forward, and his next words would haunt Zethkar for the rest of his very short remaining life. But the thing about humans, Admiral, is that we're very good at learning from our mistakes. And our biggest mistake was ever letting anyone think we were easy prey. The last thing Admiral Zethkar saw was a brilliant flash of light as the Time's Crimson Talon Times was enveloped by energies that his instruments couldn't even identify. Fleet Dominus, the pride of the Draconian Empire, vanished without a trace in the space of an hour. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood alone on the bridge of the UEDS Times, Indomitable Asterisk, watching the empty space where 500 enemy warships had been. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, already beginning the process of cleaning up the debris and analyzing the battle data. Signal Galactic Command, Chen said softly. Tell them the Draconian problem has been resolved, and remind them why we prefer diplomacy to demonstration. In the depths of space, where Fleet Dominus had made its final stand, only silence remained. But that silence would soon become the most terrifying sound in the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from hundreds of species gathered for an emergency session. The vast amphitheater, carved from a single asteroid and maintained at the edge of neutral space, had witnessed many crises over its 1,000-year history. But nothing quite like this. Ambassador Krelthar of the Varian Collective adjusted her environmental suit nervously as she watched the holographic displays showing the last known position of Fleet Dominus. The data was 3 days old now, and the silence from the Draconian Empire was becoming more unsettling by the hour. The situation is unprecedented, announced Chancellor Movtar, the ancient Keth Dai, who had presided over the council for the past 2 centuries. His crystalline body flickered with colors that indicated deep concern. A fleet of 500 capital ships does not simply vanish without a trace. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. The Draconian Empire, for all its brutality and arrogance, represented one of the galaxy's most significant military powers. Fleet Dominus alone could have conquered most small civilizations single-handedly. The idea that it had simply disappeared was beyond comprehension. Perhaps they encountered some natural phenomenon, suggested Representative Hulnek of the Trilarian Union, his tentacles writhing with nervous energy. A gravity anomaly? Or a previously unknown stellar hazard? The Empire's ships are equipped with the most advanced sensors in the galaxy, countered Ambassador Telvor of the Hegemony States. They would have detected any natural threat long before it could harm them. The debates continued for hours, with each theory seeming more implausible than the last. Some suggested internal rebellion. Others proposed that Fleet Dominus had discovered some ancient alien artifact that had destroyed them. A few even whispered about the possibility of intervention by the mysterious precursors, though such talk was usually dismissed as fantasy. It was Ambassador Yithara of the Nexus Worlds who finally spoke the question that everyone was thinking, but afraid to voice. What if the humans destroyed them? The chamber fell silent. The idea was so absurd that most delegates couldn't even process it at first. The humans were barely a Class 2 civilization, having achieved faster-than-light travel only a few decades ago. Their technology was primitive compared to the great powers of the galaxy. The notion that they could stand against Fleet Dominus was like suggesting that a group of insects could bring down a starship. Impossible, scoffed General Kravak of the Thanagarian militia. I've reviewed the human military capabilities myself. Their largest ships are barely Corvette class by our standards. They have no weapons that could penetrate Draconian quantum armor, no shields that could withstand plasma bombardment. But Ambassador Yathara wasn't convinced. Her species, the Nexari, were among the galaxy's premier information brokers. They had contacts and sources that even the major powers envied. My intelligence networks have been monitoring human activity for the past several years. There have been anomalies. She activated her personal hologram projector, displaying a series of images and data streams. 3 months ago, long-range sensors detected massive energy surges from the human colony on Kepler 442b. The output levels were consistent with industrial replicators, but the humans claimed to have no such technology. More images appeared. 6 months before that, automated probes in the Wolf 359 system recorded gravitational anomalies, suggesting the testing of exotic matter drives. Again, technology that should be beyond human capabilities. The chamber grew quiet as delegates absorbed this information. Gravitational manipulation and industrial replication were technologies that even the most advanced civilizations struggled with. If the humans had developed such capabilities in secret, it would represent a technological leap of unprecedented proportions. There's more, Yathara continued. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected what appear to be cloaked human vessels operating in sectors far beyond their claimed territory, ships that emit energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. General Kravok's exoskeleton clicked with agitation. Even if this is true, stealth technology and exotic drives don't equate to military power. The Draconians have conquered 47 star systems. Their battle experience spans millennia. Experience against opponents who fight by conventional rules, Yathara pointed out. What if the humans don't? Before the debate could continue, the chamber's communication system activated with an urgent priority override. The massive holographic display at the center of the amphitheater flickered to life, showing the seal of the Draconian Empire. Honored representatives, came a voice that few recognized. It wasn't the usual diplomatic tone of Ambassador Zextal, but something harder, more desperate. I am General Vorthok of the Imperial Security Division. I appear before you today to confirm what many of you have suspected. Fleet Dominus has been destroyed. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. For a Draconian to publicly acknowledge a military defeat was almost unthinkable. Their culture was built on projections of strength and invincibility. The fleet was eliminated while attempting to bring the human homeworld into compliance with Imperial decree, General Vorthok continued. All 500 vessels were lost with no survivors. We do not yet understand the weapons or technologies employed against our forces. The holographic image of the Draconian general flickered slightly, suggesting transmission difficulties or possibly jamming attempts. What I am about to tell you may sound impossible, but our long-range sensors detected the engagement from the edge of the Sol system. The human vessels demonstrated capabilities that our scientists insist should be theoretically impossible. Images began displaying on the hologram, sensor readings, energy signatures, and tactical analysis that made no sense according to known physics. Ships that phase-shifted between dimensions. Weapons that manipulated space-time itself. Defenses that seemed to operate outside the known laws of the universe. Fleet Dominus engaged approximately 200 human vessels, the general continued. Within the first hour of combat, over half our ships had been neutralized by weapons we cannot classify. The humans demonstrated technologies that suggest their civilization is far more advanced than any intelligence reports indicated. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted questions, accusations, and theories. The Draconian Empire, admitting not just defeat but complete annihilation at the hands of a species most considered primitive, had shattered fundamental assumptions about the galactic power structure. Chancellor Mukhtar's crystalline form blazed with authority as he called for order. General Vorthok, what is the Empire's current assessment of human military capabilities? The pause before the answer was telling. We don't know, Chancellor. Our xenobiologists are re-examining everything we thought we understood about human development. Our military strategists are developing new threat assessment protocols. What we do know is that the humans appear to have been deliberately concealing their true technological level. For what purpose? Demanded Representative Hulnek. Unknown. but given the efficiency with which they eliminated Fleet Dominus, we can only assume they have been observing galactic military capabilities and developing countermeasures accordingly. The implications hit the chamber like a cold wave. If the humans had been secretly analyzing galactic military technology for years, developing weapons specifically designed to counter known threats, then every major power might be vulnerable to similar attacks. What are the Empire's intentions regarding further action against Earth? Asked Ambassador Krelthar. General Vorthak's image seemed to slump slightly. The High Command has declared the Sol system off-limits to all Imperial forces pending further analysis. We are reviewing our policies regarding human space. In other words, the mighty Draconian Empire was backing down. The species that had bullied smaller civilizations for millennia was afraid to provoke humanity further. As the transmission ended, the chamber buzzed with frantic conversations. Ambassadors contacted their homeworlds, generals revised threat assessments, and traders began calculating the economic implications of this shift in power dynamics. Ambassador Yithara sat quietly amid the chaos, her mind racing through the possibilities. The humans had demonstrated that they were not the primitive species they appeared to be, but the question that truly concerned her was, if they were this advanced, why had they been hiding it? There were only a few reasons why a powerful civilization would deliberately appear weak. None of them were comforting to consider. On one of the secure communication channels reserved for high-priority intelligence, she sent a coded message to her contacts in the Nexari information networks. Priority Alpha analysis required. Subject: Human Technological Development Timeline. Authorization: Council Emergency Protocols. Question: How long have they been watching us? Alaman. The answer, when it came back 6 hours later, would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. Deep in the archives of a dozen different civilizations, the Nexari researchers had found evidence of human observation dating back decades, not exploration or diplomatic contact, but careful, systematic intelligence gathering, shipping manifests that didn't quite match cargo scans, tourism records with subtle inconsistencies, trade agreements that seemed slightly too favorable to other species, as if the humans knew exactly what each civilization needed most. The humans hadn't just been hiding their technology. They had been studying the galaxy like a vast laboratory, learning about each species' capabilities, weaknesses, and motivations. And now that they had finally revealed a fraction of their true power, every civilization had to wonder, what else were they hiding? In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations throughout the galaxy began detecting something that chilled military analysts to their cores. Ships were moving in human space, not the crude vessels the public was familiar with, but something else entirely. Something was coming from Earth, and the galaxy was no longer certain it was ready to meet humanity's true face. 3 weeks after the destruction of Fleet Dominus, the galaxy held its breath. Every major civilization had quietly increased their military readiness, while publicly maintaining diplomatic relations with Earth. Trade routes were being rerouted, defense fleets repositioned, and emergency protocols updated. Everyone wanted to know what humanity was really capable of. But no one wanted to find out the hard way. The first sign that things were changing came from an unexpected source. Captain Thel Nara of the Independent Freight Hauler Times, Stellar Wanderer Times, was running a routine cargo delivery to the mining colonies in the Vega system when her ship's sensors detected something impossible. Computer, run full diagnostics on the sensor array, she commanded from the pilot's chair of her modest vessel. I'm getting readings that don't make sense. However, the ship's artificial intelligence, a basic model compared to what the major powers used, responded in its characteristically calm tone. Diagnostics complete. Captain, all systems operating within normal parameters. Anomalous readings confirmed. Thelnara stared at her displays in disbelief. According to her sensors, there was a massive structure in space, approximately 50,000 kilometers off her starboard side, but visual confirmation showed empty space. She was looking at sensor ghosts of something that couldn't possibly exist. Computer, what's the estimated size of the anomaly? Approximately 47 kilometers in length, 15 kilometers in width, 12 kilometers in height. Mass readings are inconsistent with known materials. That was larger than most space stations, bigger even than the great shipyards of the hegemony states. But there was nothing there to see. Run a focused sensor sweep, Thelnara ordered, her pilot instincts telling her that something was very wrong. The moment her sensors actively probed the empty space, everything changed. Reality seemed to shimmer and twist, and suddenly the emptiness was filled with the largest artificial construct she had ever seen. The human ship that decloaked before her was beyond massive. It wasn't built like any vessel in known galactic databases. Instead of the sleek lines favored by most civilizations, or the brutal functionality preferred by warrior species, this ship looked organic. Its hull flowed like liquid metal, covered in what appeared to be living circuits that pulsed with soft light. Unknown vessel. Came a transmission in perfect Asturian. This is the UEDS times Prometheus asterisk. Please maintain your current course and speed. You are in no danger. Are we? Thelnara's hands trembled as she opened a return channel. This is Captain Thelnara of the merchant vessel times Stellar Wanderer asterisk. I didn't know there were human ships in this sector. There are human ships in many sectors, Captain, the voice replied with what sounded like gentle amusement. We've been here for quite some time. We apologize for startling you. Our cloak should have filtered your sensor type. Your cloak? Thelnara managed to ask. How long have you been here? This particular vessel has been monitoring the Vega system for approximately 14 months. We have research interests in the local stellar phenomenon. 14 months. A ship the size of a small city had been hiding in one of the galaxy's busiest shipping lanes for over a year, and no one had detected it. The implications were staggering. Captain, the human voice continued. We're transmitting updated navigation data to your ship. You'll find several optimal shipping routes that will reduce your travel time by approximately 30%. Consider it a gift for your discretion. The data packet that arrived was unlike anything Thelnara had ever received. The navigation calculations were perfect, accounting for gravitational variations, stellar wind patterns, and space-time distortions with a precision that would have required months of analysis by the best computers available. The humans had transmitted it in seconds. How did you calculate these routes so quickly? She asked. We've had time to study the local space-time topology quite thoroughly, Captain. Safe travels. The massive human ship began to fade from her sensors again as its cloak reactivated. Within moments, there was no trace that it had ever been there. Thelnara sat alone in her pilot's chair for a long time, staring at the navigation data the humans had given her. Every calculation was flawless. Every route was optimized not just for speed, but for safety and fuel efficiency. It would save her months of travel time and thousands of credits in operational costs. More importantly, it proved that the humans had been mapping galactic shipping lanes with incredible detail. They knew where everyone traveled, when they traveled, and how they traveled. For over a year, this single ship had been gathering intelligence on one of the galaxy's major trade routes. And if there was one ship, there were probably others. Captain Thelnara activated her emergency beacon and began transmitting everything she had recorded to the Galactic Intelligence Network. Within hours, every major civilization would know that human ships had been operating in deep space for far longer than anyone had suspected. The revelation that came from that single encounter set off a chain reaction of investigations across the galaxy. Every anomalous sensor reading from the past 5 years was re-examined. Every unexplained gravitational fluctuation was analyzed. Every shipping route discrepancy was investigated. What they found painted a picture that terrified the galactic community. The humans hadn't just been hiding their military capabilities. They had been conducting a comprehensive intelligence operation that spanned decades. Evidence emerged of human observation posts in dozens of systems, traces of cloaked ships in every major shipping lane, records of orbital mechanics that suggested the humans had detailed maps of every inhabited world in the galaxy. Most disturbing of all, they had been helping. The navigation data Captain Thelnara received wasn't unusual. Analysis of shipping records revealed that dozens of vessels had reported similar experiences over the years, mysterious course corrections that improved efficiency. emergency rescue operations by unidentified ships, repairs performed by unknown benefactors on vessels stranded in deep space. The humans had been secretly maintaining galactic commerce and safety for decades, and no one had realized it. Admiral Kethvar of the Altarian Defense Force found himself staring at a tactical display that redefined everything he thought he knew about galactic security. His staff had spent 3 weeks analyzing the available data on human capabilities, and the conclusions were sobering. "Sir," reported his intelligence chief, Commander Veltara, "based on the shipping route analysis and confirmed sightings, we estimate the humans have deployed a minimum of 300 deep space vessels throughout the galaxy, possibly significantly more. 300 ships comparable to the one Captain Thel Nara encountered?" Admiral Kethvar asked. "Unknown, sir. But given the pattern of sightings and the areas they've been monitoring, we believe they've positioned assets to observe every major civilization and trade route. The scope of the operation is comprehensive." Admiral Kethvar studied the star charts showing suspected human positions. If the estimates were accurate, humanity had deployed more deep space assets than most civilizations possessed in their entire fleets. And these weren't just observation posts. They were active vessels, capable of intervention when necessary. "What's our assessment of their motivations?" he asked. Commander Veltara hesitated before answering. "That's the most puzzling aspect, sir. Every intervention we've identified was benevolent. They've prevented shipping disasters, provided navigation assistance, and even conducted rescue operations. We can't find a single instance of human ships causing harm to civilian vessels. And military encounters? Only the Draconian incident, sir. And that was in response to a direct attack on their homeworld." The Admiral leaned back in his command chair, trying to process the implications. A species with the technological capability to secretly monitor the entire galaxy had been using that power to help people. It was almost unprecedented in galactic history. "Sir," Commander Veltara continued, "there's something else. We've been analyzing the technology demonstrated during the Draconian engagement. Our scientists believe the humans may be operating with technological principles that are entirely outside known physics." Explained. "The weapons that eliminated fleet dominus appear to manipulate fundamental forces at the quantum level. Not just advanced applications of known science, but potentially entirely new scientific principles. If they've achieved breakthrough discoveries in areas like dimensional manipulation or temporal mechanics." She didn't need to finish. If humanity had access to technologies that manipulated the basic structure of reality, then traditional concepts of military power became meaningless. Fleet sizes, weapon yields, and defensive capabilities wouldn't matter if your opponent could simply phase your ships out of existence or trap them in temporal loops. The communication system activated with an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display showed the familiar image of Chancellor Muvtar from the Galactic Council. "Admiral Kethvar, I trust you've been reviewing the intelligence reports regarding human activities?" "Yes, Chancellor. The implications are significant, indeed. Which brings me to the reason for this call. The humans have requested a formal audience with the Galactic Council. They wish to address recent concerns about their activities." Admiral Kethvar felt a chill run through his circulatory system. After decades of secretly observing the galaxy, humanity was finally ready to reveal itself. The question was, what did they want? "When is this audience scheduled?" he asked. 3 days from now. And Admiral, they've requested that all major military commanders attend. They specifically mentioned that they have proposals regarding galactic security that will require military input. After the transmission ended, Admiral Kethvar sat alone in his command center, staring at the star charts. In 3 days, humanity would finally show its true face to the galaxy. Every instinct told him that nothing would ever be the same again. On Earth, in a facility hidden beneath the Mariana Trench, Admiral Chen stood before a holographic display showing the positions of human vessels throughout the galaxy. Each point of light represented years of careful observation, detailed intelligence gathering, and patient preparation for this moment. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "all deep space assets have confirmed readiness. The revelation protocols are active." Admiral Chen nodded. For decades, Humanity had watched the galaxy tear itself apart through endless conflicts, territorial disputes, and the predatory behavior of species like the Draconians. They had seen civilizations destroyed, entire species enslaved, and the promise of galactic peace crushed under the weight of tribalism and fear. "Signal the Council," he commanded. "Tell them we're ready to begin. And remind them that what they're about to learn will require them to think beyond everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in this galaxy." As the message traveled across space toward the Galactic Council chamber, every human ship in the galaxy began to decloak. For the first time in decades, the galaxy would see the true scope of human presence among the stars. The age of secrets was over. The age of guardianship was about to begin.